Let's continue with our discussion of Discovered, Not Designed, by Sean McClure. Today is the third part of our interpretation. In this part, we will talk about one of the most important and most famous concepts in complexity theory: emergence. We have actually mentioned this term many times before. In its most common formulation, emergence means that the whole of something cannot be explained as the simple sum of its parts. Take ants as an example. A single ant is extremely simple, so small that it clearly cannot possess much intelligence. But when countless ants form a large colony, you will find that the colony can exhibit remarkably sophisticated, even intelligent behavior. An ant colony has division of labor and cooperation. It can transport large pieces of food back to the nest. Some ants gather food, some care for the young, some build structures, and some even raise other insects like herders tending livestock. Scientists say this is emergence, because the intelligence displayed by an ant colony is very difficult to explain purely in terms of the behavioral logic of individual ants. And scientists are still trying to provide such explanations. But McClure argues, don't bother. You can't explain it. Just as we cannot explain the behavior of large AI models by looking at the weights of individual nodes, the defining feature of emergence is that the whole cannot be explained by its constituent parts. In fact, this phenomenon is everywhere. You cannot explain the behavior of tissues using the logic of individual cells. You cannot understand organs purely in terms of tissues. You cannot explain a human being purely through organs. And you cannot explain the behavior of companies or even nations through the behavior of individuals alone. Simply put, what happens at level n cannot be explained by the components at level n1. That is emergence. One of McClure's key insights is that emergence is not a special phenomenon in nature, nor an exception. Emergence is nature itself. Nature is a layered structure of emergence upon emergence. McClure's book is rather dense, with many concepts, and explaining them one by one is cumbersome. So in this part, I'll take a different approach. I'll train your neural network directly. First, I'll tell a story and introduce the core concepts along the way. Then I'll summarize 3 heuristics. And finally, I'll give another example. I hope that after this, you will feel differently about emergence, complex systems, and nature. When we observe nature, we often feel moved, awed, and grateful. In Wang Shiji's preface to the Orchid Pavilion Gathering, there are 2 lines I particularly love. Looking up, we observe the vastness of the universe. Looking down, we examine the abundance of all living things. To be alive as a human in this world, how could you not feel fortunate? The world is enormous, filled with an astonishing variety of things. Flowers, birds, fish, insects, plants, mountains, and rivers. Everything dazzles the eye. Yet you never grow tired of it, because everything has its own beauty. Flowing lines, brilliant colors. And everything seems to serve a purpose, as if none of it grew into its form by accident. Wang Shiji observed all this with remarkable sensitivity. But this is still a layperson's level of observation. So how do experts observe nature? Let's take a tree as an example. You must be able to see its structure. A tree has a layered structure. The whole tree is composed of branches, trunk, and leaves. Leaves are composed of cells. Cells contain even finer structures, down to molecules and atoms. This layered structure resembles what we discussed earlier with bridges and software engineering, but with one crucial difference. Nature's layers are not designed by humans. The key point is this: every layer of the tree exists to solve a particular problem. And at its core, problem solving is about processing information. This concept is called physical abstraction. Every structure in nature, whether a cell, a leaf, or an entire tree, is a physical abstraction performing some information processing task, transforming inputs into outputs. Take leaf veins as an example. They vary in thickness and form intricate, beautiful patterns. But they are not arbitrary. Leaf veins have 3 tasks. First, to transport water from the roots to every part of the leaf. Second, to carry sugars produced by photosynthesis back to other parts of the tree. And third, to support the leaf so it does not tear easily in wind and rain. Thus, leaf veins are a physical abstraction. They have inputs and outputs, and they solve those 3 problems. In fact, they are highly adaptive. Whether the weather is hot or cold, sunny or cloudy, rainy or dry, the vein system functions relatively stably. This is the result of information compression. Across many different inputs, the veins produce roughly similar outputs. We call this an abstraction because the same function can be realized in many different concrete ways. Every leaf is different. This is known as multiple realizability. Nature provides an abstract solution, not a rigid standardized component. It does not dictate how large a leaf must be or at what angle veins must branch. It allows variation. And this is only the leaf. The problems a leaf solves are very different from those solved by the tree as a whole. The tree operates at another level, anchoring roots in the soil and acquiring water and nutrients. A forest is yet another level, potentially regulating a regional climate system. This is emergence. Nature is layered, each layer solves its own problems, and the problems solved at level n cannot be explained by what happens at level n1. There are no clear causal chains linking the layers. So how does nature find these physical abstractions? Of course, through evolution. Just last week we discussed a recent insight known as the law of increasing functional information. Evolution is not confined to biology. Everything in the universe follows a path from lower to higher, from simpler to more complex. McClure uses a more generalized term for evolution: the meta-mechanism. Meta means stepping outside oneself to observe oneself. Self-reference. We often talk about metacognition, the ability to observe our own thinking from a third-person perspective. The metaverse is a universe beyond the universe, containing many types of universes. Metadata is data about data. In research, meta-analysis synthesizes multiple studies to extract higher-level insights. Research about research. A meta-mechanism is the process, at a level above physical abstraction, that selects among those physical abstractions. To ask why a tree's cells are structured the way they are, you cannot look only at the problems cells solve. You must look at the layer above, such as leaves, and ask what demands they place on cells. Whether a tree survives and reproduces depends on the environment it inhabits. Do not underestimate this insight. It is not only a broader theory of evolution. It directly undermines Richard Dawkins's selfish gene theory. Dawkins argued that evolution occurs solely at the genetic level, while many biologists believe evolution also operates at the group level. In recent years, Dawkins himself seems to have reflected on this. McClure goes further. Natural selection must be group selection. Why? Because nature solves problems at every level, and only groups can solve higher-level problems. Individuals focus on survival and reproduction. Groups must solve cooperation and peaceful coexistence. One level higher is the species level, which must find a suitable ecological niche. Its position in the food chain, its prey, and its predators. The meta-mechanism is nature selecting at every level, evaluating whether a structure or solution is good. And the criterion for good is simple. Can it continue to iterate? If it survives, reproduces, persists, and evolves, then it has been selected. This is a continuous meta-process. Selection, elimination, retention, iteration. Layer by layer, over immense spans of time, eventually producing the nature we see today. Let's summarize. Emergence implies three principles. First, every system in nature is layered. Each layer solves its own problems, and the functions of layer n cannot be fully explained by layer n1. A single snowflake has its own logic. Why is it hexagonal? Because it needs to efficiently capture water vapor from the air. A hexagonal structure maximizes surface area, while its flat shape allows it to float longer in the air. These are the problems a snowflake solves. But when many snowflakes accumulate into a snowbank, you find that the snowbank is white rather than transparent. It also contains large amounts of trapped air, allowing it to reflect sunlight and maintain low temperatures. The snowbank solves problems related to the ground environment. You cannot explain a snowbank using snowflakes alone. Though sometimes you can approximate such explanations. Take polar bear fur. A single hair is hollow and transparent, connected to nerve endings and capable of sensing subtle environmental changes. But collectively, the fur is white, providing camouflage in icy environments, as well as waterproofing and buoyancy. The second principle of emergence is that structures at each layer are not arbitrary. They maximize the entropy of the problem at that layer. Why are leaf veins thick in the center and thin at the edges? The structure looks orderly rather than random. But precisely because of this, it achieves maximum transport efficiency. It allows the greatest number of possible microscopic states. It is a maximum entropy structure. Physical abstractions are optimal solutions at their respective layers. The third principle is that the excellence of nature is not designed, but evolved through meta-mechanisms. And natural selection operates hierarchically. To understand why humans have morality, you cannot look only at individuals. You must consider human groups to understand the function and meaning of individual morality. Layering, physical abstraction, and meta-mechanisms produce ubiquitous emergence, making the world vibrant and alive. Nothing in the world is random. Everything has taken shape through billions of years of evolution to appear before you in such exquisite form. How could you not love nature? Simply put, emergence is the process by which, in complex systems, matter spontaneously organizes into higher-order structures, physical abstractions, with the highest probability. This process operates through information compression, and is realized at the meta-level through group selection. Let's consider a non-living example. A city. No city is designed from scratch. Every city evolves. Cities are rarely eliminated. Some in China have histories spanning 1,000 or 2,000 years. But they are constantly evolving. Cities are layered. They have transportation systems. Transportation systems include roads, subways, and light rail. Take the subway. It has multiple lines. Each line has many stations. Each station has entrances, stairways, ticket machines, and turnstiles. Transportation systems, subways, stations, ticket machines. These are all physical abstractions. When we talk about physical abstractions, we usually only care about inputs and outputs. When a citizen says, "I'm taking the subway to work," they do not need to understand track scheduling, energy supply, or vehicle control. They only need to know where to get on and where to get off. Matching inputs to outputs is enough. The role of these abstractions is to maximize entropy, or in other words, efficiency. Early city roads may be simple and poorly planned. Over time, old roads are eliminated and new ones built. Grids of straight streets give way to interconnected networks with diagonal roads and alleyways. The city's meta-mechanism produces group selection. People choose whether to use the subway not based on individual employees, but on whether the system as a whole is efficient, convenient, and affordable. The subway system must solve its internal problems, often by selecting at the next lower level. Eliminating inefficient teams, for example. Higher levels do not care how lower levels operate internally. Once you grasp emergence, your way of seeing the world should change. When facing a complex problem, you might first consider its layers, then the physical abstractions at each layer, and then how to apply meta-selection. Much like training a large language model. Are you thinking at the wrong level? Should you step up a layer? Can abstraction simplify the relationship between inputs and outputs? Should selection occur at a higher level? But most importantly, beyond merely looking up at the vastness of the universe and down at the abundance of things, you gain a deeper experience of the world itself. That's it for today's content. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.
If you feel there is value in this, please like, subscribe to this channel, and leave your thoughts or suggestions in the comments section. Let's grow together and read more good books.